He lifted a plastic bag into the sun and called me guilty. Lifted my eyes and saw a gun coming to my face, and for a beat that felt like a lifetime, I had to decide whether to breathe or to speak. If it were you, what would you have done? Fight, freeze, or trust that the truth could outrun a lie with a head start? Washington at noon felt like it was breathing on me. Hot, heavy, that kind of August heat that makes the street look wavy like a bad memory. Car horns melting into the hum of air conditioners, sneakers slapping pavement that could blister your skin if you stood still too long. And in my mirror, I watched the cruiser slide up behind my black Porsche and sit there, not curious, not courteous, just hungry, the way a shadow looks right before it swallows the light. He jerked the wheel carved in front of me with a little flourish that said this wasn't about safety. It was about a show siren chirping in short bursts, like a drummer testing the snare, people on the corner lifting their phones, the way sunflowers turn to the sun, record first, argue later, because that's the only kind of insurance some of us get. He walked up with that walk, the one hip set, sunglasses hiding the story in his eyes, uniform dark with sweat at the collar. His knuckle tapped my window twice like a ritual, like knocking on a door he already planned to kick in. "Nice car," he said loud enough for 4 lanes to hear it. "It's not yours," and I turned my head slow, not to be dramatic, just to remind my pulse we still belong to each other. "You need a legal reason," I told him, steady voice, hands on the wheel. "Because sometimes the most dangerous thing on a street isn't a gun, it's a narrative." He smirked a little, the way people smirk when they think they're bulletproof. "A reason," he said, savoring it. "I am the reason." And somewhere behind him, a girl whispered to her friend, "Whoa, filming, not brave, just awake, and awake is where courage starts." He told me to step out, so I did, slow, measured the way you move, when you know every motion is a sentence someone else is ready to write. He leaned into my door like a magician doing a trick. He thinks nobody in the front row can figure out the plastic crinkle. You only hear when you're close, the packet in his hand. For a breath, then gone, and I asked the only question that mattered. "Your body cam is on, right?" And he blinked in a way sunglasses can't hide. "Broken this morning," he shot back too fast, like a line he'd practiced in the mirror. A kid in headphones raised his phone higher. "You saw that, right?" he said to his live stream voice, steady. He planted it, and the crowd didn't shout. The crowd tightened. You could feel it, like the whole street held its breath and moved the truth one step closer to daylight. "Pattern interrupt." He smiled and lifted the packet like a trophy. Caught red-handed. I tilted my head and let the silence do what it does when a lie thinks it's the loudest thing in the room. Every move you make now is another line in the indictment against yourself. I said soft, not to win points, just to keep the blood in my veins cool, because rage is gasoline, and he had open matches all over his face. He went for the only thing he trusted more than the lie, his gun, metal pressing my cheekbone, breath sour with cigarettes and stress. "One more step, and I shoot," he ground out, and somewhere behind him a woman screamed. "Don't do it," someone else said. "Keep filming. Record everything. Let the world see." And I stood there, hands still, eyes forward. Not because I enjoy playing statue, but because stillness is a mirror, and when a man has to look at himself, his hand shakes. Do you think that's fair, the way the burden falls on the one with nothing to prove, the way patience gets measured in seconds that feel like years? He ordered me to the ground. He called me dirty. He called me a lot of things that sounded like fear dressed up as authority. The bystanders whispered that they saw the plant. The phones floated like small moons above the crowd. And here's where most stories of this kind go, the way you expect. Cuffs, headlines, a smear. You have to spend half your life washing off. But not this time, not this street, not this man he picked. I reached my hand inside my suit jacket, slow, visible, no surprises, and pulled out a slim piece of black leather that fits a palm like a second spine. I didn't raise my voice, I raised the badge, and for a second, the sun hit silver and stamped the word that changes everything: Federal. He barked fake before the echo died, but the officer to his left spoke into the radio. Anyway, the street went thin as paper, and the reply came back flat and final: identity confirmed. Director John Hayes. Twist. Yeah, that happened. It was like someone tilted the world 2 degrees and let the truth slide into place. You could feel the crowd switch from dread to electricity, heads whipping from me to him to the phones and back, a live stream. Kid replayed the clip from minutes earlier, the hand in my door, the shine of plastic. The crooked grin, no captions needed, cameras stacked on cameras like witnesses building an altar. And for a beat, I almost felt bad for him almost. But then he did what panic does when it refuses to be humble. He made it worse. He screamed for phones down. He warned he'd cuff civilians. He searched for the script that used to work and came up empty. And then he grabbed a boy, small maybe 8, a yellow ball tucked under his arm like a planet. He didn't want to drop gun to the child's temple. "Back off," he shouted, spitting the words like nails, and every parent in a 6-block radius felt their ribs cave in. I didn't raise anything except my empathy. "Tyrion, let him go," I said, calling his name like a break. "This is your last chance to choose your humanity," and for a blink, the porch light flickered, something decent still alive under all that armor. But pride shoved it aside, so I reached for the thing pride can't swallow. "You remember 2017, I said, not loud, just true, that transfer out of the insurance fund, laundered through 3 hands. You thought it was buried, it isn't." And his grip loosened, because shame is heavier than a gun. Rotor wash hit the block before the siren, big wind paper flyers going airborne, hair lifting the helicopter belly, opening, and black ropes dropping like vines, agents sliding down with that quiet that says we didn't come to perform, we came to end it. "FBI has taken over the scene," the loudspeaker announced. "No drama, just finality." The bald local next to Tyrion lowered his weapon as if it weighed 1,000 pounds and whispered, "I surrender." And the street answered with the sound of 100 phones exhaling. Tyrion fired once into the sky, a bullet that hit nobody and everyone, and the team moved through him like tide across stone, clean, precise, unromantic. He shouted he wouldn't kneel, his knees told the truth. The cuffs clicked, and for a second it felt like a story could end on time. It didn't. They never do. 2 blocks later, in a burst of chaos, door open, elbow thrown, a scramble that knocked radio chatter into nonsense. He slipped the transport, yanked a driver out of a silver sedan, and carved through traffic like smoke. You know what I mean when I say some people are bad at being caught, but very good at running. I went back to my car and slid my fingers into the door panel, where his had been nail-catching, on something small and cold. A red dot pulsing like a mechanical eye. Not a toy. A tracker placed by someone who understands how to hide a secret. In plain sight, jam the signal. Trace the control source, pull the last 48 hours of access logs. I told my teams because one dirty cop doesn't wire up hardware like that on his lunch break. He wasn't finished with me, not yet. The crash came at an intersection with bad lighting and worse angles, a muffled engine. A car I'd never seen slip into my blind spot and hit with the kind of accuracy a camera would call choreography. The spin, the breath punched out of my lungs, the flame blooming under the chassis like a mouth. A news chopper later called it a fireball, the kind that erases facts and fingerprints and people. The push alerts blinked red and spoke in that calm voice. Bad news, likes to use federal official believed dead in vehicle explosion, and inside headquarters, the chair with my name on it sat empty like an accusation. I wasn't dead not for lack of trying on his part, but because a stranger with steady hands and a hood low over their brow pulled me out from the gap the metal made when it folded, wrong, dragged me into the trees behind the smoke, and left me in a room that smelled like antiseptic and rain to sleep without questions. When I woke, I held something in my palm I hadn't placed into evidence because sometimes trust is a currency you spend slowly. A small silver drive with the record my official camera couldn't always promise. Not because the Bureau is corrupt to its bones, but because I know how bones break when the wrong pressure gets applied. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. Courtrooms on TV look like marbled battlefields. In real life, they smell like coffee that waited too long, and floor polish that never quits. The defense wore a suit that telegraphed power on retainer and said the footage was unverified. The victim unconfirmed, the chain of custody compromised. He moved to dismiss with a smile that wanted to be a closing statement. And the judge, a woman whose eyes said she had already seen this dance and still had patience for it, might have considered it if the doors at the back hadn't opened and I hadn't walked in breathing. I didn't perform. I didn't sermonize. I slid the silver drive into the port and let the screen tell the part of the truth my voice could ruin by swaggering. The private body cam showed the packet. Meeting my door, the hand, the grin, the posture that said he loved being the god of little moments. Then the GPS overlay rolled like a red thread on a map, my route. His tail, the impact point timestamps that clicked together like teeth, and the room got very quiet. In that way people get quiet when something long suspected is finally undeniable. A White House representative came in and said in clean, careful words that all of it would be handled transparent and loud, no dark corridors, no sealed boxes. The agents took custody of the bytes, and a lieutenant from the district, Nelson, a man with a jaw that worked too hard when he swallowed, stood up and told the thing that's hardest to say when you wear a badge. There's a protection network inside, he said. Metrics that made arrests into quotas, stop and frisks without cause, missing files that didn't walk off shelves by themselves. Witness relocations that looked more like silencing than safety. And even the wood in that room seemed to shiver because a secret dies a noisy death. The judge banged the gavel and handed Tyrion 10 years with federal spillover looming. The hallway outside chanted justice like they were practicing for a world where it isn't a song you only sing after funerals. And for a breath, I thought we had reached the end of a chapter that wouldn't insult us with a twist. 6 months later, an appeals court out-argued the word systemic and let him walk not on innocence on language and a voice on a phone. With no number, told me flatly. He was a pawn, the boss just beat you on paper. You thought you could kill a serpent, then. The line died, and I stood in my kitchen with the silver on my palm, catching a thin line of afternoon sun, and felt something I don't talk about much, that blend of bitterness and clarity that tastes like pennies. Do you think that's fair when a community watches a thing, records a thing, testifies to a thing, and a paragraph in a building none of us can see turns a body into smoke? So here's what I did. I opened a wooden box and set my badge inside for a minute. Not as surrender as strategy, because sometimes a title is a weight you put down to move faster. I took out a second drive with emails and calendar entries and soft threats written in careful, deniable sentences. I didn't drop it on the judge's bench. I slid it into my pocket like bait because fishing for bigger fish doesn't take dynamite. It takes patience and a crowd that refuses to look away. That night, on a secure screen, a new pin lit up, retired officer, missing since 2019, connected, and I shrugged on a coat, put my phone in airplane mode, locked the door behind me and told the dark street what I still believe. Even when it feels naive, power doesn't live in a trigger. It lives in the truth, and the truth keeps receipts. If it were you in that driver's seat, would you have lifted your hands? Your voice, your badge if you had one, your phone if you didn't. Would you have trusted a crowd to hold a line when a gun kissed your face? What would you have done when a child's head was under a barrel and a man's pride was louder than his conscience? I'm not asking for engagement. I'm asking for wisdom, because the next time it won't be me. It'll be someone who doesn't have a title and a helicopter, and they'll need to borrow your courage. You know what I mean? People ask me whether I think justice won, and I say justice doesn't win. It persists, it's stubborn, it's ugly. It trips, it gets back up, it survives appeals and headlines, and the slow grind of people who prefer quiet to truth. I think of the boy with the yellow ball, how his little fingers dug into the plastic, like he was trying to keep gravity from letting go. I think of Nelson standing on shaking knees to say the thing that could cost him friends and favors. I think of the crowd that refused to lower their cameras when a gun told them to, and I think of you, because none of this works without witnesses who refuse to be quiet long enough for a lie to build a house. So here's where we land, not with a perfect bow, but with a question. I can't answer alone. Do we want a country where a camera is the only key that opens a courtroom? Or can we build a system that doesn't need to be shamed into doing what it promised on paper? And if a man can plant a bag and almost bury a life until a badge and a live stream and a lot of strangers pull back the sheet, what does that say about the days when there isn't a badge, when the only witness is the person? The story was written to erase. Tell me what you think. Tell me where the line is between filming and stepping in. Tell me what you would teach your kid to do at a stop that feels wrong in the first 5 seconds. Drop your city so I know where this story traveled. Drop your experience if you've had a moment that made your stomach go hot for no reason you could name. If you wear a badge or used to tell me what you'd say to Nelson, whether you'd testify in his place, whether the metrics where you work look like justice or just look good in a quarterly report. And if you want part 2, the bigger names, the missing officer, the wire that runs under this whole street, hit subscribe and ring that bell, not for me. For the crowd we're building, the kind that doesn't blink when it's easier to, the kind that stays when the camera shakes. I read every comment, even the ones that make me mad, because iron sharpens iron, and sometimes a hard disagreement is the sound of a better floor being built. I'm John. I've worn this badge long enough to know it can be heavy and hollow. At the same time, I'm not done, and neither are you. See you in the next one.